Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchek, dietitian, fitness coach, and a fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchek Performance Nutrition, I've spent the last 10 years helping runners learn to fuel their bodies, level up their running performance, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, then let's get started on today's episode. All right. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where I am joined by my cat Nanaimo. So if you hear a little bit of purring in the background, it's because she is currently hanging out on my lap and rubbing up against the microphone. So that is what that is. All right. So today we are here in this week's episode to talk a little bit about nutrition for your double workout day. So how to set up your fueling strategy for when you have 2 workout sessions in a single day. And this is something that might be very common for you as part of your training schedule or something that you only maybe do once in a while. But it's important to kind of understand how our fueling strategy and priorities might shift a little bit if you have a second workout session coming up at some other point in the day. And as well, looking at, what are some of the common mistakes that athletes might make when it comes to fueling those double session days so that they're not actually maybe optimizing their results or their performance. So the first thing that I want to just talk about is why might you do a double session day? Like why are there, sometimes double session days on your calendar, 2 workouts, etc. Part of it might be that you're trying to fit everything in, if you've got all of your runs, you've got your strength training, maybe you do some cross training, you're just trying to fit everything into 7 days. Keep those hard days hard, those easy days easy, etc. Or it might be that you have, a sports specific reason. And this might be in the case if you're an ultra runner, you're a triathlete, you're doing 2 different types of training sessions in a day, or maybe you're doing 2 runs in a day, trying to fit in a certain volume of training without overdoing it in a single session. So getting a little bit of downtime or recovery time in between, say in the case of doing double run days. Maybe that's a timing thing, maybe it's a recovery thing. Or for a lot of runners, you might have a running workout and a strength training workout scheduled on the same day, again, to keep those hard days hard. So then you have more recovery days or rest days in your schedule. One thing I do want you to watch out for is if you are the kind of athlete who finds themselves having a lot of days where you can't train, and then a lot of days where you're trying to cram in all of your training. One of the things that we really want to watch out for with our schedule is, first of all, having adequate training frequency. So if you find that you're mostly doing double workout days, but then have lots of days of the week where you do no training because maybe you don't have time or maybe just things happen and you're not able to maybe make space or prioritize that training, see if you can't increase the frequency throughout the week rather than having some days where you've got a lot of volume and then a lot of other days with no volume at all. So anyway, switching off my run coach hat for my dietitian hat to talk specifically about the nutrition side of things. It doesn't need to be complicated. If we understand the basics of a performance fueling strategy, it's that we want to ensure that we are fueling up adequately before each training session. We are fueling and hydrating during the training sessions as needed, depending on the duration or the intensity, the environment, temperature, etc. And then we want to fuel to recover and refuel afterwards. So those 3 steps, our pre-workout, our intra-workout, and our post-workout nutrition, still stand. That is still the same thing that we're thinking about on a double workout day. But the extra workload makes this more important, right? Because we're not just doing this once a day, we're doing this twice a day. And so the first consideration that we have to think about with how we're fueling for these double session days would be, what is the length of time that we have in between the 2 sessions? For example, you might have quite a few hours in between your 2 sessions, or they might be fairly back to back. So option one would be, let's say you're doing a morning workout. Maybe you're getting up and doing a morning run or a morning, either an easy run, or maybe it's a workout on the track or on the treadmill. And then later in the day, maybe after work or after school or something like that, then you're going to go back and you're going to do your strength training session. Or the opposite, maybe you get your weights done in the morning and then you're going to do your running workout later in the day. If you've got these two sessions fairly spaced out, and they're both going to be, your workouts for the day. This is a hard day, and both of these things are going to be workouts. Then we definitely want to be fueling up well before each one, and then also having those recovery meals afterwards. Your first session, especially if it's a run, especially if it's a running workout, intervals, tempo run, something like that, long, midweek long run, something of that to that effect. This is going to deplete a significant amount of your muscle glycogen stores. So we want to make sure that you aren't then running out of energy before you get to the end of the second session, right? It's very common for people to have maybe a pretty good morning workout, a pretty good first workout of the day. And then by the time the second workout rolls around, especially getting to the end of that second workout, your energy levels are just, really starting to wane. You might notice that you are really lacking motivation for that second training session. You might find that you are often maybe even skipping that second training session because you just are too tired, too hungry, whatever the case. So we want to think about each of these sessions, as being important in terms of the pre-workout fuel up, the intra-workout fuel, again, if needed, and then of course the post-workout recovery meal. Because for the post-workout recovery meal from session one, that's part of your fuel up for session two, that just really emphasizes the importance of having a really quality post-workout meal. This means that we are definitely wanting to get in a minimum of 30 grams of protein in that post-workout meal and adequate carbohydrates, again, depending on the intensity and the duration. So that might be, anywhere from 90 grams of carbs, 120 grams of carbs, just to make sure that we are not doing a disservice to refueling and getting some muscle glycogen back into our bodies so that we have enough energy to fuel that second session. Then we're also having that pre-workout snack before session two, right? We're not having our post-workout meal thinking, okay, that's enough. And that's going to be, that's going to get me through to the end of the workout, right? Because we are having to recover from session one at the same time as we're fueling up for session two. These are needing to happen almost simultaneously. And that's, the challenge of the double workout days is that we don't have that same 24 hours or maybe even a little bit longer in between workouts like we would if we were just training once a day at the same time of day. So our nutrition kind of has to do double duty here, and it just makes it more important. So yes, if you are someone who, does double session days, once a week or twice a week, you are going to have to eat a lot. You need a lot of fuel on those days. If you're familiar with the athlete's plates, which is something that I use, pretty frequently with my clients, I really like them as a simple, visual tool for looking at your nutrition and making sure that you have the right amount and the right proportions of different things on your plate. This is also a tool that I use in my online program, something you can learn about in the Fuel Train Recover Club and in the Fuel for Runners online course. We're thinking about using that hard training day plate because even though it might be routine for you to be doing these double workout days, the reality is that you need more fuel, and that's definitely going to make it a hard training day. So if you've got quite a few hours between sessions, then we've got time to have a post-workout meal that includes the protein and the carbs. And then of course, we're going to have that pre-workout snack before the second session. If it's, quite a few hours, like if it's 8 hours, 10 hours in between the sessions, you're probably also going to have like lunch, another meal in the middle there throughout the day. But we definitely want to not miss out on either of those two meals after the first workout, before the second workout. And then of course we need our recovery meal after the second workout as well. If, on the other hand, you have a double session, but they're back to back essentially. So this might be if you're doing a run and strength workout and you're just kind of going to do your work, you're at the gym, you're going to run first and you're going to head over and do the weights. Maybe you are a triathlete who is doing a double workout, but you're going from the pool to running, running to biking, or biking to running, pool to biking, whatever you're doing that day, however you're fitting it all in. Maybe there's some strength in there as well. If you're doing that as a brick workout and everything is going to be right back to back, it technically would be sort of considered intra-run fuel, I guess, but because you're changing tasks, you're changing what you're doing, I sort of would see it as two separate workouts. You want to make sure that you're having some fuel in between. And this is especially true if the total duration of the session is going to be several hours. It's not just 30 minutes of one and 30 minutes of the other. If we're talking about, each of these workouts is going to be maybe an hour, hour and a half, whatever it might be, then we absolutely want to be fueling during, but we also might have a bit of a bigger snack in between those two sessions. Maybe we're including a couple grams of protein in between as well. But of course, primarily what we want for fuel is going to be carbohydrates. So this means that it might be something a little bit more substantial than just your sports drinks or your gels. Maybe you're stopping and having a granola bar. Maybe you're going to have, half a sandwich, a peanut butter sandwich, for example, getting a couple grams of protein in there, a little bit of fat to keep you full. But again, primarily we're emphasizing the carbohydrates. Maybe we're having some fruit and a couple of almonds, just something small, but enough so that by the end of that second session, we're not really running out of gas and having a crappy quality second session because we are really having a hard time with getting in enough fuel to kind of take us through all of those things. So emphasizing the carbohydrates in between. And then of course, afterwards, we definitely need to be getting in a really good source of protein and carbs to refuel after a longer session duration. The intra-run fuel too might be something that you're going to include a little bit more intra-run fuel or intra-workout fuel during the first session. If it's a workout that you maybe wouldn't normally fuel quite as much, but if you have another session right after or later in the day, then this might be a good opportunity to just bump up how much fuel you have during as well. Again, just to kind of add to the overall amount of energy that you're taking in throughout the day. If these sessions are quite long and are potentially going to interfere with like the time of your other meals, your ability to get in enough fuel throughout the day, then including some intra-workout is another great opportunity. All right. The other thing that we want to think about is going to be hydration. Again, if these sessions are taking place in a warm environment, in the summer, outside, they're long, etc., then we also really need to be thinking about hydration. And so this here, we're looking at, again, going into each session as hydrated as possible. So we're drinking certainly before session one. Maybe we're drinking a little bit extra during session one. And we're definitely including fluids as part of our post-workout strategy. Along with the fuel, we want to make sure that fluids are a big part of that. Again, this isn't different than our normal post-workout nutrition. We want to have the protein, want to have the carbs, want to have some fluids in there, but it's just a little bit more important because you don't have all the rest of the day and evening and into tomorrow to rehydrate, right? This is something that becomes a little bit more urgent because you've got another session coming up that you want to be adequately prepared for. So a couple of mistakes that I see a lot of runners making when they're doing double session days. The first one, of course, is doing a very long workout, which is essentially, these two sessions back to back with nothing in between. And as I mentioned before, the quality of our workouts can really dwindle as the hours go on. So, let's say you're doing your run workout first, then you're going to switch gears. You're going to do your strength training right after. You will just not be able to lift as much. You're not going to be able to lift as long. You might find that you're getting hungry as, you get to the end of that strength workout, and you might call it quits kind of early. You might get 15 or 20 minutes in, start to feel tired, don't have great energy, getting hungry, okay, I think I'm going to call it quits. Whereas if you did have a little bit of fuel in between, you could lift more, you could lift for longer, and you would have a really great quality second session that is ultimately going to get you better results. And this is really the importance of thinking about fuel in this way, is how can we optimize performance and how can we optimize the results we're getting from really great quality training sessions. The second big mistake is doing either of these sessions fasted. It's just a terrible idea. Don't do it. Fuel up before you train so that you can have great quality sessions, especially your workouts. And doing either of these sessions with no fuel is just going to detract from optimizing your performance and optimizing the quality of your sessions. And especially if you have a second workout and you are doing nothing to help yourself recover and refuel from the first workout, you're going to go into the second workout in an even bigger energy deficit. And that's just not going to give you the results that you're looking for with your training. The third mistake that I see people making is doing two workouts earlier in the day. And that could be like a before work and an after work. That could be two early in the morning, like a longer session back to back early in the morning, and not eating until we're eating all of our calories late in the day. So we're like minimal for fueling, or maybe we're doing either of those sessions fasted, or not having very much for a post-workout meal or lunch, or we're not having a pre-workout snack before the second session, whatever it might be. We're taking in minimal fuel and calories and energy before, around the timing of those workouts. But then when we're done at the end of the day is when we are ravenously hungry and we're eating all of our calories at the end of the day. And this is a huge mistake that I want runners to avoid. And I see this honestly with people who train once a day or twice a day, is we're under fueling all day and then we're eating everything in sight at the end of the day because we're so hungry, right? We've done all this work, we've done all this training. Our body is just, needing fuel, needing to recover. And we feel very out of control with maybe what we're eating at that time of day. So one of the things that I want you to really be thinking about is, how do I ensure that I'm going into each of these sessions as well fueled as possible? Because when we are well fueled going into a workout, we then have more energy for the workout to do a better workout, running faster, running longer, lifting heavier, lifting harder, whatever it might be. We get better work done, more quality work done, which is what then in turn helps us to get fitter, get faster, improve body composition, build more muscle, whatever it might be. If we are trying to essentially eat less and move more, we're just going to get further and further away from our goals as time goes on. So really thinking about your performance nutrition strategy as, how can I go into each workout ready to train as hard as I possibly can at my maximum capacity, is how we get the best performance out of ourselves, but also get the best results in terms of all of these other things that we might be looking for as runners. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode all about fueling for double workout days. The biggest thing that I want you to remember from this conversation is that fueling for double workout days isn't that different or more complicated than fueling for your single workout days or your rest days, but we do have to be more intentional and we do have to be a little bit more strategic about making sure we're getting in good quality sessions. So that looks like definitely utilizing that hard training day plate, making sure that we're fueling up and recovering simultaneously from both of those workouts, including hydration as part of our strategy, so we're not allowing dehydration to negatively impact performance, and not being afraid to consume more carbs than usual, especially intra-run carbs, intra-run fuel, so that we aren't running out of gas as we get into that second session. You might feel a bit silly, taking a gel or taking some energy chews on a run when normally you wouldn't, quote unquote, need them. But if we're thinking ahead to, making sure that we're not then having a crappy second workout, it is absolutely worthwhile. So once again, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Fuel Run Recover podcast. If you need more help with your training, with your fueling, you need a nutrition strategy, maybe you don't even have one and you don't even know where to start, then I would love to help you out. I've got lots of different options for runners, everything from one-on-one coaching with myself, both nutrition and run coaching, I also have my online program, the Fuel Train Recover Club, which gives you access to tons of nutrition resources, training plans, all kinds of things to help you get ready for your next race. And then I also have my online course for runners. That's the Fuel for Runners online course, which, if you just need a nutrition tune up, you just want to learn the basics of making a fueling strategy for yourself, this is a great option as well. So I've got something for every level of support that you might be looking for as you get ready for your next race. Maybe you're just in the base building stage right now and you want to just, start off right, start off strong with a solid strategy. Maybe your race is coming up in the next couple of months. You want to make sure you're ready. Whatever the case, it's never a bad time to start thinking about your nutrition or to get a proper training strategy so that you can be as prepared as possible for whatever your goals might be. You can get all of the details about these different online courses, online programs, one-on-one coaching with me by visiting my website. That's www.stephanienetchuk.com. The link, of course, is in the show notes, and I would love to chat with you. So thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode. We will catch you here back next week for another all new episode of the podcast. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.